On today's episode of the Chris Lacurdo Show, we're going to unpack how to recognize when you're taking on emotions that aren't yours, why it's happening, and most importantly, what you can do about it. This is a must listen if you're ready to lead with clarity and reduce unnecessary stress in your life. That is coming up next. Welcome to the Chris Lacurdo Show, where we discuss leadership and life and discover that business is what you do, not who you are. Welcome to the show, folks. I hope you're having a fabulous day wherever you are. Today we are talking about something that is near and dear to my heart, and that's because this is something that I struggled with most of my life. There's a good percentage of you, though, that probably come from a guilt and shame past, that probably come from somebody convincing you that you're responsible for their well-being, that you're responsible for their happiness. It's usually something that's influenced. It's not usually something that's just taken on. And in fact, I don't know if I've ever met anybody who didn't have the influence as they were younger, in their childhood, that they were responsible for somebody's well-being. I'm not saying that it can't happen later on in life, but there's usually something somewhere in that what we call the root system that is driving somebody to carry other people's emotions later on in life. And again, it doesn't have to be something that you even recognize. It doesn't even have to be something that was blatant, although most of the time it is. It can be just something that was simple. It could be a parent who is wording things in a specific way that convinces you that it is your job to make them happy, or it is your job to make them well, right? To make them whole, which obviously as a child, that is not anything that you can do, and it should never be put on a kid. But how could it happen as an adult? And again, I have seen maybe a handful that it's possible it came from adulthood, but really I think there's things that I can point to that show that it came before that. But some people probably don't recognize it until they become adults and they realize that they're being taken advantage of, or they realize that they are struggling, anxious, self-deprecating in ways, especially if you connect yourself to somebody who is an emotional abuser, then you will find this as well. So today we're talking about, if you haven't figured this out already by the title, we're talking about not carrying emotions that aren't yours. So as we dive into this, there's a lot of things that we need to discuss, but I want you to take this. We're going to talk about this in a business sense, but again, every single bit of this applies to the home. Every single bit. Right? How you're treated with family members, siblings, parents, how you may be treating other people. You might be suggesting that people are responsible for your well-being, for your happiness. Those are definite possibilities. So as we go through this, try and look at yourself, reflect on you through the lens of both sides of this process. Has it happened to you? Are you doing it to somebody else? When it comes to the business aspect of it, a lot of folks, we see this a lot of team members are trying to make a leader happy. A lot of team members feel responsible for a leader's well-being. If I could just please this leader, then I will be a good person. So the biggest key to understanding this is to understand how much your worth is attached to it. If you're trying to please a leader, if you're trying to please a spouse, if you're even trying to please kids, whoever it is, siblings, parents, your worth is tied to you pleasing them. This is where we get this concept of people pleasing, right? biggest key is understanding how much of your worth is tied to it. Oh, Chris, my worth isn't tied to it. I just enjoy taking care of people. Okay. Let's take a look at when things don't go the way that you want them to go and somebody isn't happy. How do you feel inside? How do you respond inside? That's where you start to discover that this is well more than just serving people. That's where you're going to discover that your worth is tied to this process. And again, I know it has been the bulk of my life. I should say definitely the first half of my life, I was a professional people pleaser. I come from a heavy duty guilt and shame background, and I know what it's like to feel this way. I know what it's like. If this is something you've experienced, then, I get you. I understand. Almost everything I teach on this show is something that I've experienced in one way, shape, or form, right? I get it. I understand. And that's what I want to help you to discover, because it's tough enough if you experience this in your personal life. It really sucks when it gets, you pull it into your business life. And yes, I did say you, because you are an adult now, right? For those of you, well, if you're working in a business, most likely you can be considered an adult. Our 6-year-old does work for us in our farm, so she's not an adult. But so when you bring this to your business, and that's actually a good piece for me to just kind of segue into as well. You have to realize that as a grown adult, if you've not gotten help on fixing this and solving this, and by the way, if this is something that you experience, there's probably about 400 different other things that you're also experiencing as well. Emotional attachments or emotional situations and struggles and worth issues that you've probably recognized some of them, and you're probably not recognizing all of them. Do yourself a favor, get your butt into Next Level Life. It'll help you out immensely. When you're an adult and you haven't solved this, you carry this process everywhere. It's like luggage, right? You're going to carry it into your business. There's no doubt about it. You're going to carry it into your job. There's going to be places that you try to please other people. Why? Because your worth is tied to it. So if you're struggling with worth, and we all are, then you're going to look for ways that you can enhance that worth, grow that worth, feel more worthy, right? And so if you're somebody who is a people pleaser, that means that in certain ways in your life, you feel like you've been able to please people and it's given you worth. But I would lay down money. You've also experienced an incredible number of times where you lost worth trying to please people, where you lost worth trying to make somebody happy and they just weren't. And maybe it backfired and they became angry or. So keys to understand as we go through this, you listen to me. Everybody listen to me. You cannot make somebody happy. I don't care what you tell yourself. You have to change the voice in your head. You cannot make somebody happy. You just can't. I have to choose to be happy. You can do a phenomenal song and dance. You can give me gifts. You can compliment me. You can do all kinds of stuff. But if I choose to not be happy, I'm not going to be happy. It doesn't matter how much you do. Do you understand that? I had to come to this revelation I think it was in my late 20s, may have been early 30s, somewhere around there. I had to come to this revelation that I couldn't make a human being well. I couldn't fix anybody. I couldn't make them happy. All I could do is try. And the moment I understood that every bit of their response was up to them, that's when I stopped being a people pleaser. That's when I stopped. Well, actually, let me throw this in. Before this, I realized that my worth came from God. It didn't come from human beings. I gain worth from helping people change their lives. I gain worth from being a husband. I gain worth from being a father. I gain worth from being a teacher. But all of that worth is small. It's all tiny amounts compared to what God says about me and who he says I am and how much he loves me and how much he has pursued me my entire life and how much he is trying to win over my heart to be a loving, obedient son. So once I understood that, then all these other pieces started to become incredibly clear. I can't make somebody happy. I can't make somebody angry. I can't make somebody anything, right? I can make my daughter clean her room. That is something I could definitely do, and she has no problem doing that. I can't make people do stuff, which means that I can't fix them. I can't make them happy. I can't make them like me. I can't make them whole, well, any of that. So let's get into some of these key points here. What does it mean to carry emotions that are not yours? Well, just a simple definition is taking responsibility for others' emotional well-being, their happiness, their pleasure, their stress, right? Taking those things on. So, for example, if like a leader feels responsible for a team member's unhappiness at work, then, or, even if it's due to personal issues outside of the leader's control, then that's taking on that team member's emotional well-being. Now, I will tell you that I usually tend to see it go team member to leader. I usually tend to see team members who connect with certain leaders, put them on pedestals, and then do everything they can to try and make them happy. I'm not saying that leaders don't do it the other way around. That absolutely happens as well, right? Especially if you see somebody who's probably more a submissive personality style that has a, what they consider to be a dominant personality style, or even a rock star on their team, who tends to struggle from time to time. They will probably try to solve those struggles. So it's literally just taking on somebody else's, responsibility for their emotional well-being, their stress, their pleasure, their happiness, all of that. By doing this can lead to incredible amounts of stress for you. This can lead to emotional burnout for you, especially for leaders, and again, for team members massively as well. This goes everywhere. Or a spouse. Again, this carries into your family, a child, a grown adult child of somebody else. If this is something you're trying to accomplish for a parent, this can lead to severe burnout over time. And yeah, it's just a waste of time. Decision fatigue is another thing. Trying to make proper decisions when you are stressed out, burnt out, carrying somebody else's emotions makes it incredibly difficult. So that's the first thing, is just understanding what it is. Number two is, why do leaders often kind of carry emotional weight that isn't theirs? Now, we talked about some of this as root system issues, misplaced sense of responsibility. You believe that is your responsibility. Or another thing that can happen, and again, this is in the vein of people pleasing, is if you are afraid that you're going to look like you're not supportive, if you're going to look like you're not caring for this person, then that can be another reason. A third reason could be a lack of emotional, healthy boundaries. Now, a people pleaser, or somebody who feels responsible for others, chances are they think they have boundaries, and what they actually have is walls. They probably do not have healthy boundaries. They probably have walls where they have blocked somebody out, but they don't just block a person out, they block many people out. What's the goal? To keep people from knowing them, getting to them, seeing them, understanding them. So they could put their focus in caring for other people's a lot, but not allow those people's to have any kind of what they think is any kind of emotional effect on them. And yet the very concept of what they're doing by trying to please people is creating an incredible amount of emotional issues. So when you don't have healthy emotional boundaries, when you don't put healthy emotional boundaries in place, then what happens is, even if you're trying to avoid it affecting you, it's going to affect you. You've got to learn how to put in healthy emotional boundaries. And by healthy, what I mean is that those people who are not healthy do not get to you emotionally. This is key. This is crucial. The only people that can get to you emotionally are healthy people. And healthy people should be good for you. If they're not good for you emotionally, they're probably not emotionally healthy. Right? Now, that doesn't mean that somebody who's not trying to help you out might push on you a little bit, to make you healthy, to help you to get to healthy. That doesn't make them unhealthy if they're trying to help you, right? So let's be clear about that. We're trying to keep toxic people out, but we want to allow healthy people in. So if, I don't know, let's say a family business leader, right, may feel obligated to solve problems for a parent or solve problems for a sibling, or maybe it's maybe it's financial, maybe it's emotional, and they think it's their duty to solve those issues. Maybe they think it's their duty to keep the peace, right? That if they don't keep the peace, then everybody is going to be unhappy. So they become, the person who's able in their mind to do that, which they're not. Be a peacekeeper as much as you possibly can, but understand, if people are going to go off the rails, they're going to go off the rails. Doesn't matter if they're your sibling or not. There's only so much you can do. So how does it impact the business? Well, that's going to create poor decision making. I would even dare say desperate decision making. It's going to create an inability to focus on critical responsibilities, things that we have to, vision, strategies, things that we are trying to accomplish. If we are spending our time trying to solve people and we're not solving us and they're not solving themselves, then it's going to get messy. It's going to get difficult. We're going to drop the ball on a lot of stuff. We're going to have a lot of bad decision making because many of our decisions are probably now going to be based around whether or not people are happy or whether or not there's peace in the business. So another terrible thing is carrying that around and not realizing how much it's impacting your business. So number 3, what are some signs that you're taking on emotional stress that isn't yours? Well, you may be consistently feeling overwhelmed. You may be consistently feeling drained. You might even be consistently feeling, anxious, having anxiety, right? But what I tend to find more than anything is the overwhelm and the drain. Just tired, just worn out, just that emotional burnout by trying to solve another human being, by trying to, as I say, fix another human being. Another thing is avoiding difficult conversations because maybe you want to protect other people. You want to shield other people, right? So maybe there's conversations that come up about how somebody is messing up or problems are happening or they're not taking on responsibility or, and you kind of avoid those conversations. I can remember somebody coming to me in my early leadership career and really calling out somebody else doing something very wrong and bad, but I was still stuck in that, responsible for others mode. And I remember thinking to myself, how do I avoid this? How do I avoid addressing this thing? What can I do? Because I feel bad for that other person. So another key indicator is maybe you feel guilty, as I did. Maybe you are struggling to say no. Maybe you're struggling to set healthy boundaries. These are all aspects of or I shouldn't say aspects. These are all signs that maybe you're taking on emotional stress. That's definitely not yours. So if a leader hesitates to give maybe honest performance feedback, or maybe they're fearing upsetting a team member, you need to tell them where they're messing up or where they could do better, or where they've affected team members or clients or vendors or whatever. But if you hesitate to give that honest feedback, this is probably a good example that you've taken on some of their emotional stress or some of their emotional struggles, right? Even though the feedback is necessary, it's necessary for growth, it's necessary for solving problems, there's a really good chance that if you're struggling there, that you've taken on their struggles. So, number 4, what is the cost of carrying others' emotional weight? Because you know that there's cost, right? You do understand, like I talked about the burnout. That's not a shocker to you. I don't think being drained and being overwhelmed is a shocker to you. I don't know if you've recognized, though. So here's an interesting thing. You have a bucket that can only hold so much. You can only hold so much emotional stress, physical stress. There's only so much stuff that you can take on. And what tends to happen is when you take on other people's emotional weight, it increases your stress levels. It increases your stress levels where you might not be able to handle your own personal stress issues because you're carrying somebody else's, or maybe even multiple people's, right? All of this, stress, period. What does stress do? Stress dumps cortisol in your gut. Stress starts to destroy your microbiome, and it starts to destroy the good bacteria in your gut and grow the bad bacteria. What does that tend to do? It tends to destroy your digestive system. All of that tends to create problems with craving things that you shouldn't want. What is the number one addiction? Carbs, sugars. Why? Because that lights up the pleasure centers in your brains, right? It lights up the pleasure centers the same as cocaine does in your brain, right? So people always look to drugs to being the problem. How much are you shoving sugar inside of your body so that you can feel better about yourself, so that you handle stressful situations? And what does that do to your body? It deteriorates your health. As a Sicilian and somebody who used to eat American wheat almost daily in some form of pasta, I know that had a big effect on me with a body that was already struggling with high levels of lead. I know that affected me a lot, right? So these are things that can deteriorate your body. Another personal cost is damaged relationships because you have misplaced priorities. So you might be placing priorities high for solving this other person or people, and it affects all of your other priorities as well. What does it look like when it comes to the business? Well, guaranteed lower productivity. If you spend 30 minutes in a week trying to solve somebody, that's 30 minutes lost, right? You can't fix them. You can't make them happy. The problem is you don't spend 30 minutes in a week. You probably spend many hours trying to please somebody. Oh, Chris, I don't interact with somebody that much. No, take a look at your tasks. Take a look at the way you approach your job. Take a look at the things that you prioritize. There's a really good chance you're trying to get somebody to recognize that you're doing things to take care of them. Take a look at how many hours you do spend counseling and coaching somebody who is struggling, right? It's not just one way. There's many ways that we can try and take on somebody else's responsibilities. But I can guarantee you, you're losing productivity. And if you're a leader, then your focus is going to shift from the strategy of what we were trying to accomplish as a business to a really unnecessary emotional labor. Again, guilty as charged. I used to have somebody in my younger leadership years who figured out that if she could come to me with problems, I would do everything I could to fix her problems. I was just always going to be there until I realized, and this is when I was getting into the healthier days, until I realized, oh man, she's creating problems to come to me. to solve. And then when I stopped solving, her head blew off. I mean, I remember a time where she emotionally lost it, yelling and screaming as I just sat there quietly waiting for her to be done with her little rant because I had figured out what's going on. And I stopped trying to help her and started pointing her towards solving things on her own, and she lost her ever-loving mind. Blew up. And I wasn't shocked. Why? Because the truth is I kind of expected it. I saw it coming. But I realized I had to do the right thing. So you got to understand as a leader, you cannot lose. I'm not saying don't try and help people. Don't hear me say don't help people, don't counsel people. That's not what I'm saying at all. I've always been that person. The difference is I recognize when this is somebody who's trying to get me to take on their emotional well-being, and that's when I put in super healthy boundaries. Another, business issue, a business cost, we could say, is the team getting inefficient because employees don't learn to take ownership of their responsibilities. So if you enable people because you're trying to solve their problems, if you're trying to take care of their well-being, if you're trying to make them happy, whatever, then there's a really good chance you're tanking their inefficiency because of what you're doing. So before we get to solutions on this, I want to mention something that's vitally important. And that is our Next Level Leadership live event that is coming up. So let's be honest. One of the hardest parts of running a business isn't the work itself. It's managing people. Just like we're talking about today, folks. So if you've ever felt like you're consistently putting out fires, struggling to get your team to take ownership, frustrated that things don't move forward unless you personally push them, you are not alone. That is exactly the reason why we created the Next Level Leadership Live 2025. It is happening April 2nd through the 4th. And this event will show you how to lead a team that actually operates without you being in the trenches every single day. So folks, here's just a couple of things that you're going to walk away with. How to develop leaders on your team so that you're not the only one making big decisions. The keys to getting buy-in and accountability so you're not micromanaging every little thing. How to create a culture where people take ownership so you don't have to chase them down. And here's the best part. You'll leave with a clear plan to implement these strategies immediately. There's no guessing. There's no hoping things change. You'll know exactly what to do next. Now, I know some of you are thinking, Chris, I don't have time for this. But let me ask you, how much time are you already losing dealing with people problems? A few days at this event could save you months, and for some of you, maybe even years of frustration. So registration is open. Go to chrislocurdo.com/live events. That's chrislocurdo.com/live events. Do it right now so that you can save your spot. Your business doesn't have to run on stress and frustration. Let's fix this once and for all. All right, moving into number 5, which is how to set emotional boundaries and lead effectively. So here are some practical steps that you can do right now. First thing is recognize the weight. Folks, recognize the weight. Identify when you're taking on emotions or responsibilities that are not yours, right? Number 2, communicate boundaries. And let me throw in again, healthy boundaries. Clearly define what you can and cannot take responsibility for. You may have to sit down and make this list all on your own. Don't actually wait for the moment when you're in the moment with somebody and you're struggling. Don't wait for that moment to write these boundaries down. Sit down and list out the healthy things, the healthy boundaries, defining the things that you can't take responsibility for. So when you're in the moment, you know them. You've practiced them in your head, and you're able to lay out those healthy boundaries. Many folks will struggle to even remember what some of the healthy boundaries are, and then they'll just try to tackle something that they're seeing in the moment. If you know exactly what you can and cannot do, and you've practiced it in your mind, then it will flow pretty easily, and it will actually sound to the other person like, they will recognize you've been thinking about this. This isn't something brand new. The big key to this is do not let your guard down on those healthy boundaries, because any person can wait for 30 days and then come back at you, right? That happens all the time. So if you're going to set those healthy boundaries, make sure that you keep those healthy boundaries. Oh, but this person's doing so well. Just keep waiting. If they're going to continue to do well, then they're going to continue to do well. But don't be shocked and surprised if they don't. If all of a sudden one day they flip and go back to the same ways. So number 3 is I want you to ask better questions. Help team members own their challenges by asking questions that are fantastic and helpful. Like, what steps can you take to address this issue? What are some things that you can do? I just gave you a practical tip of writing things down. Help them. Hey, go back and write down all the things that you can do to solve this. Go back and write and make the emphasis on you, right? Go back. What can you do? How can you solve this? What are some ideas that you have? Help them to recognize that they're not a victim. They're also not enabled. They're also not entitled, that they have a responsibility to solve things. If they ultimately can't get there, then you have to ask yourself the question, do you want a team member who can't solve problems? Right? Drive to this solving problems solution that is not you. And I got to tell you, this is something that I see all the time. One of the things I see nonstop is people trying to solve other people's problems instead of allowing that person to solve it, especially younger people, especially my daughter. Goodness, my older girls, it's funny because I can't think of a time when anybody was just always jumping in to solve their problems, right? And I am somebody who, I don't solve your problems. I help you solve your problems so you can think for yourself and you can solve them on your own, right? So I've had to actually stop people from solving my daughter's problems. She's smart. She can figure this out. Just because you see her struggling, don't run to her aid. And that has shocked some people. It is interesting to see how much people want to go rescue a child. I heard a guy say one time this fantastic phrase: you grow your self-esteem by stealing it from children when you solve their problems. Think about that. Now, I'm going to tell you, you've heard me say this before, I don't give a whole lot of care towards your self-esteem. I care about your self-worth, your self-respect. There are some good aspects to self-esteem, but a lot of it is crap that was made up in the 80s and 90s to help people feel good about themselves, even though they were doing stupid stuff, right? But this is a great case. You grow self-esteem, you grow self-worth, you grow self-respect when you can solve your own problems, when you can do things for yourself. But what happens when somebody comes along and steals that from you by solving it for you? Then what happens is you grow in this thought of, oh, that was much easier. I could just let this adult change. I could just let this team member, I could just let this leader change this, fix this for me, solve this for me. And I don't have to do it. That was much easier. Then what happens when this child gets into situations, or they become an adult and they get into situations that nobody's solving their problem for them? They lose their minds. They go ballistic because it's not the way the world is supposed to work. People are supposed to solve their problems. You've probably seen this 100 times. So make sure that you're doing things to ask better questions. Make sure that you're pointing them to solution, that you're not allowing them to be victims and you're not allowing them to be enabled. Number 4, you've got to learn to delegate responsibility. You have got to encourage people to have ownership by empowering other folks to find solutions. For me, that has been my entire life. I've solved my own problems. I don't have a problem solving problems. That sounds very funny as I say that. I will figure things out. Now, I'm also somebody who asks a ton of questions. I am a perspective gathering fiend, right? I will ask people questions. I am asking experts all the time. I have many of our clients, many of you who are our clients here, you'll get a text from me. It's like, hey, what do I do with this situation? Because they're the expert in that field. So I'll ask. I don't have a problem. If I'm bugging somebody, I want them to let me know. But I want the expert advice so I can solve the problems. I'm not going to spend 4 hours on YouTube trying to figure out how to solve a problem when I can get a 5-minute answer from an expert, and then I can go solve my problem. So don't confuse this. I'm not asking somebody to solve it for me. That's the big difference. I'm asking for advice. I'm asking for expert advice, expert perspective. I've got this problem. What are your thoughts on that? And usually what I will do is I will tell them, and people know me pretty darn well, I'm going to walk through every bit of opportunity that I can come up with on my own before I go, hey, what do you think? Here's the things that I've done. What are your thoughts? People recognize that I'm somebody who doesn't just ask the question the first second that I've got a problem. I'm trying to figure this thing out all on my own. It's when I get to the place where I'm like, I'm not sure I've got the best answer just from my cranium. So let me tax the collective intelligence and see what I can do. When you do that, when you help people to solve problems, they will solve problems. I'm somebody who's had to solve problems my entire life, so I will solve problems. I will take ownership, and I will drive things to solutions. So here's some action items I want you to take right now. 1, go sign up for the Next Level Leadership Live event. Get in there and get way more teaching and direction on how to solve stuff like this. Next thing I want you to do is I want you to self-reflect. I want you to spend 15 minutes reflecting on situations where you've taken on emotions and responsibilities or that were not yours. So identify patterns, identify triggers. For a lot of moms out there, a thing to think about when you're looking at your kids is that cry, that struggle, right? When you see that could be a trigger as a mother. I must nurture this child right now. I've got to solve this for this child right now, right? They're crying. Oh, I've got to fix the cry, right? I'm not saying let your child cry for 3 hours. What I'm saying is how do you solve the problem by teaching them to solve it in the moment instead of solving it for them? What does that look like, right? So reflect on triggers. If you're a leader who continues to solve problems for your team, why? What are the triggers that get you to step in and solve something? Now, for some of us, and this was me in my early years, my identity and worth was tied to fixing things. So I liked to fix things. I just learned early on, especially I was in youth ministry in my 20s. I learned to teach kids to fish, not just give them a fish, right? I didn't want them to just eat for a day. I wanted them to eat for a lifetime. So again, look at those triggers. What are those things that happen, those patterns that cause you to jump in? Number 2, set a healthy boundary this week. Pick one. I don't care. I don't care what it is. I want you to choose one situation where you can establish a healthy emotional boundary. Figure it out. Think about it. Look at the situation. You know what's going to happen this week. You know what's going to happen next week. You know what you're going to experience. Sit down and figure out at least one healthy boundary that you can put in place. Third thing I want you to do is I want you to practice delegation. Now, I'm not getting into it to the level that we would in Killing the Leadership Crazy Cycle. I'm just telling you, find a task or responsibility that you can delegate so that you can encourage ownership within your team. But if you're going to do the same thing that people have always done in the past, which is, did you do that? Did you do that? Did you get it done? Did you get it done? No, I'll take it back then. Then don't waste your time, because then you're just going to create greater frustration. Number 4, get feedback from healthy people. Biggest piece to that puzzle. Recognize people, colleagues, coaches that you trust to help you identify areas where you might be overstepping into emotional territory that isn't yours, right? So find somebody that you trust, invite that person into a discussion, make sure they're healthy. Got to make sure they're healthy. and then get some solid feedback. So additional resources that I have for you is episode 110, Emotional Intelligence Explained. So in this episode, we break down emotional intelligence. We explore why it's essential for personal and professional growth. And then we provide actionable tips to help you develop it. Also, episode 607, the importance of emotional intelligence in small business leadership. So whether you're a seasoned leader or just stepping into leadership roles, emotional intelligence is essential for understanding yourself, your team, the dynamics that drive success, everything, right? So in this episode, we unpack the skills needed to transform your leadership. So, folks, leaders, parents, team members, your role isn't to carry everyone's emotional weight. It's to guide, support, and empower your team. So by setting healthy boundaries and recognizing when you're taking on emotions that don't belong to you, then you can lead with greater clarity. You can reduce stress. You can foster a more productive work environment. So here's what I'd love to know. What resonated with you most from today's episode? Let us know. podcast@chrislocurdo.com. If you're enjoying this, please like this episode. Leave a good comment that helps us to reach more folks. Well, folks, that's all the time that we have for today. As always, take this information, change your leadership, change your business, change your life, and join us on the next episode.